session to order. Can I get approval on the minutes? Thank you so much. It stands without objection. Council, if you will look over today's agenda, we have no ordinances on final reading. We have, and hit your light if you have any questions or comments. All right. Councilman Hester.
This question for Chattanooga Fire. Bring me to a better understanding on ordinance 6A, please. I'm not sure that's what I asked.
Good afternoon, Council. 6A, was that the fire district for?
That's correct.
Okay, so what that is basically doing is changing the code on the builder of the residential apartments to be able to use a different type material on the front of the structure. The fire code or the fire zone district now specifically says fire retardant has to be used, but this will allow them to be able to use a different type of material on the front of the structure.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, good, Councilman. All right, Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, mine was concerning under resolutions 2A. Is it,
All right.
I'm assuming that we were covering all the agenda.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Chief, I've got a question.
7A?
7A.
Okay.
I don't know how much difference it would make. I know when I was talking about, or working with the department to get the lighting at John A., I was working with community development. Does that, instead of Public Works, does that matter?
My understanding is that.
Dylan's got his hand up back there.
I don't think it matters.
No, he's shaking his head, it don't matter. I just want to make sure it gets to the right department.
Understood.
Okay,
All right, you good, Councilman?
I'm good.
All right, thank you. All right, again, hit your lights if you have any additional questions or comments. Oh, I'm sorry, hit yours again, Councilman Burrs. Hit it again for me.
Thank you.
Okay,
I want to think about it.
you'll touch it again. All right,
Okay.
there you go.
Yeah, I just want to follow up on your question, Councilman Henderson. That is in my district, and that's old law that needed cleaning up for present purposes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's cool. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, and we are under resolutions. Under council office, any comments or questions? All right. Okay, if you will take a look at your next week's proposed agenda. Any comments or questions? Feel free to hit your light. Okay. On the purchasing questions, there are 2 purchases today and 3 renewals, no sole source, emergency, or RFPs. Any questions or comments? All right. If you would take a look at future considerations, any comments or questions? Okay. All right, we have no departmental reports, and as you well know, council, we have several committees today. So we will start out with Economic Development Committee, and there will be a public hearing today for that, followed by Parks and Public Works, and we will have a slight change and have Budget and Finance after Parks and Public Works, followed by Planning and Zoning. So any other questions? All right. Councilwoman Coonrod? Thank you. Can we get approval of the minutes? Thank you. Okay, Jermaine?
Yes, good afternoon. Madam Chair, did you want to read through the resolutions under economic development before we?
The one time I try to throw you the kite. No. Clerk, if you'll read 7F, the resolutions.
A resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a quitclaim deed to convey the city of Chattanooga 50% interest in the delinquent tax parcel at 7700 Basswood Drive, further identified as tax map number 129LD024.0 7702 to Hamilton County, Tennessee.
You okay? Question? Okay. G,
A resolution authorizing an additional $20,000 distribution of fiscal year 2022 to 2023 Community Development Block Grant funds to the Chattanooga Community Housing Organization for roof replacement for low and moderate income individuals.
thank you, and if you'll read next week's resolution, 7D.
A resolution to make certain findings relating to the Cordza Inc. project to delegate certain authority to the Industrial Development Board of the City of Chattanooga and to authorize the mayor to enter into and execute an agreement for payments in lieu of ad valorem taxes.
7E.
A resolution approving the acceptance and distribution of fiscal year 2023 to 2024 Community Development Block Grant and Home Investment Partnership Act funds from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and program income, all totaling approximately $3,191,716 as shown fully here and below.
Thank you. Okay, Jermaine, public hearing.
All right, good afternoon, members of the council. I am joined today, of course, by Mr. Tommy Johnson from Cordza Incorporated, as well as Steve Hyatt from the Chattanooga Area Chamber of Commerce. I wanted to give a quick recap of the pilot that we presented back on April the 18th. And then, of course, in the commitment and spirit of the administration's desire to have a public hearing, we had asked the council for a public hearing immediately following this. So just as a recap, you all were introduced to Cordza back on April the 18th, in which Mr. Johnson explained what Cordza does in making and manufacturing and distributing the nylon 66 yarn that's then used to build the cord that makes up tires, both for vehicles and aircraft. The potential pilot that we're looking at is an expansion of Cordza in which 200 new jobs would be created. There would be a $50 million capital investment, which includes $5 million of real property and $45 billion in personal property and equipment. The pilot would last for 10 years, and the pilot only applies to the improvements that would be on the grounds of Cordza, not to existing property. All school taxes would be protected, so there would not be any abatement of school taxes, and property taxes that are in place before the pilot will continue to go to the general fund. Just as a reminder, the company committed to work with the city to provide additional greenway access for a future greenway. The company is also committed to working with the city and county as part of a new apprenticeship initiative called Build Within. The company will also make best faith efforts to publicize job opportunities to attract local residents, as well as available construction opportunities for local contractors to bid on their work. This is an overview of the Cordza campus. So to your right, this is actually sort of turned sideways. So to your right, the long road going vertically is North Access Road. So just imagine you were on North Access Road, sort of looking into the site, and sort of the area at the bottom where there's a red outline is property that is owned by Rise Partners, in which they are building Class A industrial space. This is where the proposed expansion area would be for the new building that would be part of the central part of Cordza's expansion. And so just to sort of recap the timeline, so we shared this with you back on April the 18th. And so today we, of course, are doing a public hearing. The county commission will vote tomorrow, and then this item will come before you for vote next Tuesday, May the 9th. This is a rendering of what the new building will look like. And so this is what would likely be on the Cordza campus once all of the new construction is complete. And with that, I'll take any questions, and I'll defer to the chair to start the public hearing.
Thank you, Jermaine. So did we agree on 2 minutes? 2 minutes, anybody want to speak about it?
Can I ask you a question?
Oh, yep. What did you put your light on? Okay.
Thank you.
Vice Chairwoman.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a expansive site. And as I look at the overhead views of the site, there's another that shows that we have a significant amount of acreage over this computer screen. And so I'd like to know if Cordza would be open to donating some portion of the northern end of the site, not by the river, but the opposite end of the site that abuts DuPont Parkway and 153 for affordable housing use for the city.
May I ask Mr. Johnson to come address that? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll add just a little bit of context to that, Mr. Johnson. You know, DuPont, when it came in, was responsible in some regard for quite a lot of housing being built in the vicinity. In my own district, there's essentially a mill town, Bagwell City was built there. We've got another portion of Bagwell City adjacent in Councilman Smith's portion of the district, which will become District 2. And it feels to me like that northern area that right now is fully treed might be a good area for a little bit more staff expansion for housing.
So that is new to me, as you can imagine. We would like to really look at this for even further expansion down the road as well. So I won't say no, but at this point also I can't say yes either.
Okay.
So-
Well, know that I'd like that to be part of the conversation, please. How many acres do you have total at this site?
I think it's 299.
299. You know, even 10 acres would be great. That's not even 10%. So give it some thought if you would.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good, Councilwoman.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? All right, well, we ready to start the public comment. Anybody want to come to the podium to speak about it? Any questions, any concerns?
I'm Janice Gooden, in District 8. I saw the presentation a couple of weeks ago, and I appreciate the update. Looks like a lot of work has gone into this ahead of time, and I'm pretty much impressed by the jobs that will be coming, high wages, local hires, consideration for justice involved individuals, and all the collaboration and the partnerships. So I am supportive.
Thank you. And if we can also make sure we got the 2-minute clock on, please. Yeah,
You don't need it from me today, I promise.
yeah.
Well, maybe on second thought. Good afternoon, council. My name is Helen Vern Sharp. I live at 129 Walnut Street in District 7. I'm representing Accountability for Taxpayer Money, and I wanted to say thank you to the council for having this public hearing on this pilot.
Thank you. So I heard she want to yield her time? No, I'm just kidding. All right, anybody else? Well, that concludes our public hearing. All right, so we'll go to Parks and Public Works Committee.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome to Parks and Public Works Committee. Kind of low down here, isn't it? We're running with it, okay? Can we approve the minutes? Madam Clerk, can you read ordinance on final reading? 5A, please.
An ordinance closing and abandoning a sewer easement located in the 1800 block of Ridgewood Drive, beginning at MH S156 F093, then southwest 120 feet to MH S156 F016, tax map number 156F M003, as detailed on the attached map, subject to certain conditions.
I see no hands. Next Tuesday, Resolution 7F, please.
A resolution authorizing the City of Chattanooga to apply for and if awarded to accept a Land and Water Conservation Fund Outdoor Recreation Legacy Partnership Grant for the completion of Phase 3 of the Alton Park Connector in the amount of $4,729,252.44 with a match not to exceed $4 million.
No hands. G, please.
A resolution authorizing the appointment of Doug Pell as Special Police Officer Unarmed for the Department of Public Works Transportation Division to do special duty as prescribed herein in his position as Transportation Inspector, subject to certain conditions.
Are there any questions or concerns regarding parks and public works? No questions, so that's the end of my committee report. Thank you. Next, we'll have the budget. Thank you.
Call to order Budget and Finance Committee meeting. The purpose of this meeting is to kick off budget considerations for next year. And the process is pretty much what it's always been. What's going to happen today is administration will go over the budget for the next year at a high level. And the budget itself is going to be online for all the public to see, and budget notebooks are going to be dispersed to council when this is over. What's going to happen beginning next week, everything will be transparent, above board, all discussions will be as well. What's going to happen starting next week and for the next several weeks, and the agenda has already been published, will be discussions of all the areas of government and their attendant budgets. Council has been briefed individually on their various areas of concern, and beginning next week, once we have our public education sessions, which, by the way, the council has opted to have those sessions in the council conference room so we can really sit around the table and talk about it. People are welcome to come, however, we're going to be streaming all of those meetings. That particular room, due to fire code, has a certain number of people that are allotted to it. Once that number is reached, people will have to go out into the hall. So we strongly suggest, because it's not a question and answer period for the public, we strongly suggest that you participate by streaming. Once your council representatives are totally informed, as will you be if you participate in the streaming, then you can talk with your council representatives about your feelings about the budget, your thoughts about the budget. If you choose not to do that, at the end of all the education sessions, we'll have public hearings where you can all come in and participate. We're required by law, and we want to hear what you have to say. That will happen at the end according to schedule. Now, the schedule may be, and we will publicize it, the schedule may be changed if things need to take longer or if things need to take less time. So always watch your streaming if you can't be here in person, or talk to your representative, and they will take care of you accordingly. Today is a day for us to just get the overview of the budget, and no questions per se, just the overview of the budget. Then our work starts diving into the notebook, asking questions of administration, and you will see everything that happens from here on out. The sessions start at 10:30 in the morning, and they will go all the way through till we have our meetings at 3:30. I think that's pretty clear. If you have any other questions, please let me know. But at this point, I'm turning over the budget, the presentation, excuse me. I've just been told that we have to approve minutes of our last meeting. I have no idea when we last met, but I'm sure everything we did was just fine. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone opposed? Okay. Then we would go to my beautiful speech about what I just said. And now, I think everybody is fully informed, and I'm going to turn the process over to the mayor's chief of staff. Joda?
Yes, good afternoon, council, and thank you to you, Madam Chair, for leading this budget process. We are pleased to present our fiscal year 24 budget. But briefly, before I go into it, and again, I want to be respectful of the time. I know we have a busy agenda session and committee structure today, so this will be a very high-level presentation. We are going to have ample time in the coming weeks to review the budget at a department by department basis. But I do want to briefly review, what we looked at last year in the previous year. Last year, we formulated a bold, actionable budget for implementing the One Chattanooga plan, and we fortunately have a number of wins to show for it. Thanks to this council's decision to invest, we've seen a nearly 40% reduction in homelessness, the creation of nearly 600 plus new affordable housing units, a reduction in violent crime, as well as a new robust citywide gun violence prevention plan. We have improved road conditions. We've stemmed the tide of the reduction of our road quality by investing $10 million a year in paving, something that will continue in this upcoming budget. And we created over 500 new jobs and $50 million in new investment, which is an add to the local economy. This year, we are doubling down on that progress, and we're putting forward a budget that continues to focus on the things that matter most to Chattanoogans. And this year is about continuing the work ahead with a focus on the One Chattanooga plan, as it has been since the beginning of this administration. Again, this budget focuses our priorities and doubles down on One Chattanooga. That means historic investments in a robust compensation plan that will strengthen our city and attract a top-rate workforce. And that looks like a step plan. This is historic, and I'm going to let my colleague Ryan get into the details of that. But this is something that our employee groups as well as our workforce have been asking for some time. And it is a big step for Chattanooga to be able to attract a really stellar team of public servants. We also, in this budget, bolster public safety and infrastructure investments, hiring firefighters, launching a community violence intervention program. We had a great meeting about that today where we'll be able to bring on folks who are justice involved to help stem gun violence in our community. We will improve and renovate our parks and also make major repairs to our bridges. And we, again, will continue the historic level of investment into repaving and resurfacing our roads. We will also improve service delivery for our residents. That means purchasing new garbage trucks and hiring additional drivers. And we will bring on new short-term vacation rental inspectors, because I've heard, as has this entire administration, about how important enforcement is. And then we will also be bringing on an administrative hearing officer. And we're doing all of this and more without proposing a tax increase. This is the administration. Thank you. This is the administration making the decision to steward taxpayer dollars wisely, but that also means that we are going to be making some focusing decisions. We will have to prioritize. But again, I want to really emphasize that this budget focuses on what Chattanoogans care most about. There were some significant challenges in putting this budget together that are not unique to our city. And that meant that this budget year called for us to focus and streamline, as well as demonstrate good stewardship of taxpayer dollars. Some of those challenges looked like rebuilding a post-pandemic workforce. As we have brought on additional staff from where we were in the pandemic, that meant, especially whenever you consider in our first year, we significantly invested in the pay plan, a $30 million plus investment into making sure that we were competing with the market. Maintaining those improved pay scales has additional costs later on as well. And that also meant increasing base salaries to attract qualified civilian candidates. The impact of inflation has obviously affected all of us. This is something that from really every single project, from labor to materials to construction, we have seen 20, 30, 40, in some cases, upwards of 100% increases in some materials and projects. We had a good conversation yesterday with Councilwoman Hill about some sidewalk projects that came in way, way above where we anticipated them to be. And this is just the market that we happen to be in. And so we've had to adjust our budget, just like every Chattanoogan has had to adjust their budget as well. And then we've also had to address a range of deferred maintenance items. Our roads and bridges are primary priorities for this administration. We are committed to making sure the city has good infrastructure. And as we make progress on everything from roads to parks and pools and community centers, we know that those capital investments were going to come in, at a higher level than we would have expected just a few years ago, but we can't afford to fall behind any further. So I'm just going to quickly run through some of the key investments that we are making this year. And I'll start with affordable housing. This is one of the most important issues to Chattanoogans, and it's one of the most important issues to Mayor Kelly. We are deploying $3 million of federal funds to create or preserve over 400 additional units of affordable housing over the next year. I'm optimistic it will be more, but we can conservatively say 400 more units of affordable housing will be added thanks to the investments that we're making in this budget. Additionally, we are building out our affordable housing team, adding 3 positions, including a housing policy and housing finance staff member to support our Chief Housing Officer, Nicole Heyman. And that is going to be a critical capacity add as we work with local developers, but also local nonprofits to increase not only the number of units, but also to preserve the units that we have and making sure we are aligning a strategy that is appropriate for every single neighborhood and every single district. Additionally, we're going to be working, as you know, with a nationally set of renowned consultants, or a set of nationally renowned consultants to really determine housing needs across the city. And those studies are set to come out here in the summertime. We are building out a policy toolbox to incentivize developers and landlords to build and rent affordable units in the neighborhoods that need it most. We are going to continue to double down on our progress on homelessness reduction. We have made significant investments into the Chattanooga Regional Homeless Coalition, our key partner in the work, $820,000 to the coalition, which is then invested in a whole range of service providers. We have seen this administration house over 2,000 people over the course of this administration, just 1,000 last year. If we want to continue to see significant progress on this issue, we know that we need to maintain this level of investment. These investments, and I'm not going to read every single one of them, but under the coalition will support a number of services. Additionally, we are going to continue to support ongoing project management oversight of the conversion of Airport Inn to permanent supportive housing, but also we have another permanent supportive housing project hopefully coming online on Main Street with the Aspero and Ames Center project. Under roads and critical infrastructure, we have set aside $187 million for roads and critical infrastructure, and this does include stormwater. But that means $10 million for paving, which is, again, a historic number that has been sustained in this administration. This is part of a $40 million commitment over 4 years for repaving roads. We also have $4.1 million set aside for other road-related work and sidewalks. And then another big addition in this budget is the investment into our local bridges. Both the Wilcox Bridge, which we received a significant amount of money from the federal government, and we received a raise grant for $25 million, which required a match. And then also we will be renovating the Walnut Street Bridge. And then we have also, through WIFIA loan and other financing sources, we will be investing $142 million in various wastewater projects and $11 million for stormwater projects. And this is a part of our consent decree. We are going to continue the work around investing in the strategies that we know work to increase public safety. Part of this means making sure that our police department is well funded and that we have a strong police department. but it also means getting creative and innovative with the work. So that means continuing our funding for our crisis response unit and victims advocate center with the Chattanooga Police Department. It also means launching a community violence intervention program where non-law enforcement folks are going to be working to stop violence before it happens, working closely with our police department. We are also allocating $1.5 million towards a new fire training tower. For those of you who have participated in fire ops and dragged yourself through that burning tower, as I know many of you have, that tower is nearing the end of its useful life, and I know the fire department's very excited to get a new tower, and this is done with a match from the county. We are also going to be adding 9 new firefighter positions and adding $4.5 million for 5 new fire trucks to make sure that we maintain our ISO rating and support the growth in this city, and ensure that we have the fire coverage we need to be a safe city. We're going to continue to invest in parks and green spaces. We've got more coming up on this. We've got $1.6 million set aside for new parks, including Province, Lynbrook, and Schoolyard. And that also includes $1 million to renovate our skate park, which I believe has been a topic of conversation across multiple administrations. This skate park has fallen into a state of disrepair. This is about making sure that a key asset that a lot of people enjoy in our community is maintained and doesn't continue to pose a safety risk. Additionally, we have $400,000 set aside for park improvements in neighborhood parks that need it most. And again, you will be hearing more about this as we roll out our Parks and Outdoors Master Plan. Mayor Kelly said from the beginning of his administration that early learning is one of the top priorities because this is where, of his administration, because this is where it all begins. And so that's why we have deployed federal ARP dollars to build out a pipeline of early learning professionals throughout the through the One Chattanooga Institute for Early Care and Learning. This is a really exciting triple bottom line win to make sure that we are expanding the number of seats, we're expanding the number of opportunities for folks to enter the workforce in a good paying job. And then also we're creating the workforce that will allow young families to go back to work and have access to childcare. So this is a critical win for the administration. We are also proposing a $765,000 in supplemental funding for Head Start teacher salaries. This is something that we began last year, and this is the first time in city history last year that we supplemented Head Start salaries. This is something that we worked closely with our employee groups on, and we are proud to do because our Head Start teachers play an extremely important role in our community in supporting a vital public service. And so as we invest in a competitive workforce, we wanted to make sure that our grant-funded Head Start teachers were included too. Finally, we're adding a new community forward school coordinator to help ensure that Hamilton County Schools students and families are getting the wraparound support services they need. In economic and workforce development, as we have added over 500 good paying jobs, we're going to keep that momentum going. We are expanding and increasing paid apprenticeship opportunities in the city, both with apprenticeship readiness programs, as well as expanding the Build Within apprenticeship program. We're also going to be adding $150,000 to its route expansions at the Chattanooga Airport, which is critically important for our economic development efforts, as that is it's in the rubric whenever companies decide whether or not to relocate here, is what kind of airline service that we have and where do we connect to. And so as we open up expansions, hopefully to the West Coast, we're going to be opening up a totally new set of businesses that may be able to bring good paying jobs to our community. And then finally, we're prioritizing the partnerships that are going to prepare our city for the jobs of the future, from clean manufacturing to quantum technologies. Again, this budget year is exciting, and we do have a lot of important investments that are going to move our city forward. But at the same time, we have, in order to cover these investments, needed to focus and streamline. And so you're going to hear from my colleague, Ryan Ewalt, our Chief Operating Officer, a little bit about some of the realignments and decisions that we made in order to make sure that we were stewarding these tax dollars wisely. So Ryan, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you, Joda. I also just wanted to mention quickly that tonight is Joda's last night with us. So Joda is sick, but he's pulling off a Michael Jordan-like performance
I don't have COVID.
here. So thank you, Joda, for coming, and he wouldn't have missed this for the world. So obviously. So, all right. Again, as Joda said, what's that?
The Michael Jordan resemblance is uncanny. But
Yeah, you do look a lot like MJ. So again, I'm Ryan Ewalt, Chief Operating Officer. Thank you for the time. I did want to spend a little bit of time on how this budget, again, we did have to focus on streamlining and demonstrating good stewardship of our tax dollars. And so one specific way that we are doing that, we went through department by department, but we wanted to highlight for y'all this evening, specifically around community development and the restructuring that we are doing there to help our Department of Community Development focus solely on community centers and services there. In doing so, our neighborhood services team will join the Department of Equity and Community Engagement. Our code enforcement team will join the Land Development Office and join our building inspectors over there that do permitting. Once again, joining forces under one roof, metaphorically speaking. And I'll mention that financially, our homelessness and supportive housing group will be joining our economic development and affordable housing department. So the Office of Family Empowerment will continue to be in community development, and we've seen good efforts there as that work's getting integrated more into our community centers. So we're excited about that sharpening focus in community development. And as we do that, we'll continue to redefine our community centers as neighborhood hubs and focus new programming, skills-based training, and health screening for all ages and stages there. Going further in terms of pay plan, Joda mentioned this. I wanted to go a little bit deeper here for our team members as well that are listening and will listen. We have heard the feedback from our team members, specifically in the engagement survey last fall. There were two bits of feedback. One was around compensation and thinking that it could be better, and the other was around performance and making sure that we are rewarding people for their performance. And so we've listened to that feedback, and accordingly we are implementing something that's been asked for some time, and that is a non-sworn pay plan, step plan for our non-sworn employees. And so we believe that will help attract and retain our frontline workforce. What that means specifically for our hourly employees is that they will receive credit for years of service. And for many of them, over 2/3 of them, that will mean more than a 4% pay increase with the implementation of this pay plan. So more than what I would call a typical cost of living increase. For our salaried employees, they will not be placed based on years of service, but they will move up 2 steps, which is about a 2% cost of living increase. And on a go-forward basis, there will be a performance component to this step plan, which I think is important to highlight. So that means our good employees can expect certain progression through our pay plan that could be more than 1 step, and I think that that is important. And also want to mention that our sworn employees and our wastewater employees will be receiving their regularly scheduled step increases that is included in the proposed budget. Some other things around responsive and effective government here that we wanted to highlight. We are focused on placing, again, taxpayer dollars where we feel like it is most warranted. And some of this is also based on feedback from each of you, and it's from City Council, around how do we improve service delivery. So we will be hiring 2 new STVR inspectors, the AHO, Administrative Hearing Officer, that we've all talked about. In addition, 4 new garbage truck drivers. You know that's near and dear to my heart. So that will really help alleviate the overtime situation that we have in garbage, as well as pulling people from other sections to drive garbage. So we're excited about that. And 7 new garbage and recycling trucks. That's huge because our fleet continuously breaks down. We haven't invested enough there, so excited about that. Wanted to highlight this, new cost savings incentive program. So this would be a program where employees who have cost savings ideas can be rewarded for those ideas that get implemented and save the city and taxpayers money. So look for more information over our detailed sessions, but excited about that one. That's based on best practices from around the country, and was an idea from one of our employees, actually. So, and the last one I'll mention here is we will continue to do work to modernize using technology and digital services for our residents. We're focused on our 311 app. It is effective, but it could be a lot better. And so we're focused on how to do that. And we are continuing the work on the city website to make it much more intuitive, user-friendly, and provide better service for all of our residents. Finally, when it comes to streamlining, ultimately it did as we went department by department, division by division, team by team, this budget process, we did have to make some hard choices. And ultimately, we have to look at, for each department, each division, each team, how can the tax dollars be put to the best use? And in some cases, we found situations where there were redundant positions, where there were opportunities to streamline. And so it was a very thoughtful, deliberative process. And through that process, we have identified 29 positions where we feel the need to reduce those positions. And so this budget submission does reflect a net reduction of 29 positions, 15 vacant, 14 filled. Of the 14 filled, 8 are full-time and 6 are part-time positions. That's across 6 different departments. We, frankly, do not take these decisions lightly. These were very hard decisions to be made, but we do feel that these are in the best interest of the taxpayer, and we do feel that these are prudent decisions. And again, as we look at this budget in totality, we feel that we are reallocating these dollars in ways to advance the One Chattanooga mission and priorities as best we can. So when we go deeper into some other examples of cost savings, again, these are just a few examples that we picked out to share with y'all from various departments. You can see here some activity. Our IT department does a great job of looking for redundancy and streamlining opportunities where certain departments might be able to share a certain software and gain some efficiency from that. So you can see that around some time clock licenses that has $68,000 of savings a year, $200,000 of savings through the end of the contract. Fantastic savings there. We are constantly looking at how can we bring work in-house or contract it out, depending on the situation, and how can that save money for the taxpayer. In this case, a custodial contract was costing us too much money by outsourcing it, and so we actually brought it in-house, and that will save us money by bringing that in-house, $100,000 annually. HR department is even in on the action here, so no dollar amount is too small. Reducing paper usage, going digital, saving $5,000 a year. And you can see here the library finding $25,000 by getting rid of redundant software. So just a few examples here that we wanted to share with you all. Ellis calls these couch cushion examples, but I think it's just important to show that, again, this budget year, as Joe mentioned, I mentioned, we really have gone department by department, division by division, team by team, to see where can we find savings, where can we reallocate dollars so that our taxpayers and our residents of Chattanooga can get the biggest bang for their buck. With that, Joda wants to add something. Yes.
I just wanted to, I know we are running up against our 4:15 deadline, and I know we also have budget education sessions where we're going to be able to dive into these details. So we do have a section that I'm not going to go through. It is in your packet where you are going to be able to run through our revenues, our revenue sources. Again, all of this detail is in your packet, and your books are waiting for you. I'm looking forward to the discussion, as I know our team is. And I just wanted to close really quickly by articulating something that Ryan said, which is that this is a budget that is about implementation. And it is about making sure that we are fulfilling the commitments that both council and the mayor have had. And Vicki, I didn't know if you wanted to add anything. I know we have, we're clear in our deadline, but I just wanted to make sure that
I just wanted to thank this fantastic budget
Absolutely.
staff.
Yes.
Yeah, they have been through it for the last few months. So thank you to Frida and Cynthia and Markson and Skylar and Christy and Teresa.
Is that it?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you very much. Vicki, I was getting ready to do that. And also to thank you. A lot of work has gone into all of this. I've had the pleasure of working with you guys, and you've worked very hard. With that, Madam Chair, we present the overview, and beginning next week, we will start the deep dive into the education session. At that time, we'll handle whatever questions are necessary, and I will call this meeting to an end. Thank you, ma'am, and turn it over to planning. And you're back. Oh, good. All right, it's all yours. Thank you.
Okay, I got a little deja vu here. This is familiar a little bit. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Planning and Zoning Committee meeting today. I will take a motion on the minutes, please. Thank you. Minutes will stand without objection. Ms. Rennick, council, in your packet, it is 4:20. We have 7 cases with opposition. Karen, correct me if I'm wrong at any time, please. 7 cases with opposition. We do have a short-term vacation rental presentation by Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson, are you okay to let us get through our cases?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And yes, ma'am.
I have 3 that I want to.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Yep. So what we're going to do next, if council will oblige me, is look at the cases. You have a packet. Thank you for staff getting that to our desk. With the opposition that is noted by Planning Commission and RPA,
And if you would, please let me know what cases you would like to discuss, and we'll take those 7 first. Councilman Henderson and Dr. Burrs, just a second.
I don't really want to discuss it, I just have a question. Remain on one of my cases.
Yes, sir, no problem. What case is that, Councilman?
The 0034.
0034, okay. And Dr. Burrs, I saw your light, man. Do you still need to?
Yeah, I want to take them off.
You want to take, all right, you want to give me those case numbers right now?
Yeah.
All right?
2023-0262, 2022-0263. I believe those are I want to defer those to the 21st. Is that the correct date?
Give me just a second.
Yeah, the 21st.
21st.
To give time for community meetings, etc.
So, Dr. Burrs, let me clarify real quick. Case number 0262, 0263.
To the 21st.
Those two.
right.
Okay, I thought I had heard 3, so my apologies.
Well, there's a couple more. 0037.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 0037 and 0051. It was not opposition, however, the applicants have never talked to me. I don't know anything about the projects.
Yes, ma'am.
So I would like those to be deferred
To the 21st. Okay.
And hopefully the applicants will see fit to let me know what's going on.
Very good. Madam City Attorney, do we have that noted?
Duly noted.
Thank you very much. Well, you took away some of our conversation right there, so thank you for those notes. Councilman Henderson, you had a note. What case number was that again, sir? 0031? 34, my apologies. Let's cover that one. I do notice that was no opposition at Planning Commission, so
I just have a question.
yeah, if you'll hit your light, I'll turn the floor over to you and Ms. Rennick. Thank you, sir.
Mayor, were you able to have a conversation with the applicants about any of the affordable housing units?
Not yet, but we'll reach out to them.
Okay.
Yeah, not yet, and we'll follow up with you.
Yeah, this is coming up next week, so.
I know, yeah. We'll get you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Henderson. Any other council member have cases that have noted opposition you would like to hear more in depth? If not, I'm going to ask Ms. Rennick to kind of touch on the cases that did have opposition, and then we will go from there as to the other cases that came through Planning Commission without opposition. Ms. Rennick, I am seeing no other comments or questions from council on cases receiving opposition at Planning Commission. So can we pick up with case 0054?
Yes, and I'll communicate with the applicants of the cases that got deferred.
Thank you.
And just let them know to contact Councilwoman Burrs for the last 2.
Okay.
So case 54 did have opposition. We had an email in opposition to this case. Property's located at 1204, 1208, 1214, 1216 East 35th Street Place, and then the 1200 block of East 35th Street Place. It's a request to rezone from R2 and R5 to M1 manufacturing zone. And the applicant proposed some conditions, and it's for the expansion of production of an existing manufacturing facility at the location. The existing business is Stewart Advanced Materials, and it's the large building shown there south of the rezoning site in purple, and that purple zone's that M1 manufacturing zone. The proposal is to extend the M1 zone north to East 35th Street Place, with the exception of that one piece that doesn't have the red line around it. So that is not part of the zoning case, but you will see conditions do pick up protection and buffering of that property. The development form north of the site is predominantly urban single-unit residential lots.
And the area that fronts along East 38th Street is predominantly warehousing, wholesaling, truck loading, and that's reflective of the existing M1 zone. The site is in the Rossville Boulevard Community Plan, which recommends medium-density residential. That is an older plan from 2004. And the plan recommendation is single-family dwellings, townhomes, patio homes, and a mix of residential units. So the plan does not support the expansion of manufacturing to the north along this location. The site does abut the plan recommendation for heavy industrial, and that's probably reflective of the existing zoning on the ground. We did note that looking back at aerial photography, you'll note that there is not much residential development in the site where the industrial manufacturer wants to expand. And we did note that some at least 4 residences, it appear, had been moved or demoed since 2010. So the plan was developed in 2004. It's really looking at residential development. Those residences have been removed over time. And Steward noted in their application materials that they've been in business at this location for over 140 years and noted that they've not received complaints about operations from the current neighbors and that there's not any expectation that the new facility would cause any significant change in the amount of noise, odors, or traffic to the area. So staff noted the proposal is not compatible with the plan, but the majority of the site is now vacant, and the proposal is an extension of an existing zone and use in the area. The proposal is compatible with the surrounding manufacturing uses, and staff recommended conditions approval with conditions related to height, use, and buffering to ensure compatibility. There was no opposition present. We did receive an email regarding from neighbors regarding concerns on property value. Planning Commission found the request is compatible, recommending approving the M1 zone with the conditions shown on your screen. You'll note that the conditions, several of them are related to screening for the residences north of the site and also screening around that one residential property that remains that comes with a 50-foot building setback and type B landscaping with intention to provide that some distance from the manufacturing uses.
Madam Chair, I believe this is in your district. Would you like to respond or make a comment?
I'm excited about the project. I think it's gonna be great for the area, so I have, I'm good to go with it.
Okay. All right. No other comments I see on the board. Karen, real quick, if I may. Dr. Burrs, I have Tuesday the 23rd. I know you had asked for the 21st. Is Tuesday the 23rd okay for your deferrals?
Sure.
Okay.
Whatever that date was.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. I didn't have my calendar pulled up, but
Okay.
I have the 23rd Tuesday.
Perfect.
Okay. Duly noted. Thank you for that. We'll change that. All right, thank you. Karen, you want to take on 3-8?
The next case that had opposition is H on your agenda, which is case 38. This is a request to rezone property in the 1700 block of Mulberry Street from R2 to urban general commercial zone. The applicant provided some conditions, and they're proposing a 6-unit structure. The location is about 2 blocks southwest of Eastside Elementary, just to orient you. The surrounding land uses include vacant lots, duplexes, and single-family residential. The historic River to Ridge, Area 3 Historic River to Ridge Plan recommends urban residential place type, and that designation is intended to act as a transition between single-family and commercial uses. It doesn't specifically suggest townhomes as a residential form, but it does note that a range of housing types from single-family to small to moderate scale, multifamily are appropriate. So the UGC zone does allow that greater density when developing urban infill, but it does have those commercial uses, and staff's recommendation has conditions related to use, form, and height to ensure compatibility. So the developing surrounding form is kind of a mix there, but usually pretty traditional urban lots. So staff found the request with conditions is compatible with the plan and has a recommendation to approve with 4 conditions, which were also the same as those carried over and recommended by Planning Commission, which is residential use only, maximum 6 units, access shall be located from the alley, and maximum building height of 3 stories. And these conditions are pretty pretty standard from the UGC conditions for urban residential infill that have been approved over the past few years.
This is in District 8. Councilwoman Knoll, any comments, questions?
Yes, comments. I have yet to visit that site, so I will make sure I get out there to look at that site before next Tuesday. And the opposition, what was the opposition?
The opposition was both provided an email and came to Planning Commission, and I will note the opposition generally was concerned about perceptions regarding rental housing.
Okay, can you forward that email to me?
I can.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions or comments on case 0038? Karen? I'm guessing 4-3 or 4-1?
Yes, 4-3 is next.
4-1?
So this is noted as having opposition. We had a very long Planning Commission meeting, and this gentleman spoke up early that he had opposition to this case, but several hours into Planning Commission was no longer there to speak to it. So I'll move through it briefly because I'm not sure what the concerns would be. This is a rezoning in Fort Wood to rezone from R3 to R4 for an architect's office or professional office. There's a mix of residential uses in the area, and Fort Wood has various other R4 special zone site with small office uses within the neighborhood. So it's surrounded by a single unit, multi-unit residential, and then Macaulay Avenue is to the south of the site with those mix of commercial and institutional uses. So the site's located in the downtown plan, and the downtown plan doesn't give a lot of specific parcel guidance, but it does talk about great downtowns, and it talks about a mix of uses that support residents in the area, notes that historic buildings should be reused, and the plan states preserving a range of building stock is necessary to maintain the urban fabric, and talks about adaptive reuse. So that informed the staff recommended conditions, which includes using the existing structure, and then because the R4 zone allows that wide range of uses, including banks and some other kind of a little bit higher intensity uses, is recommending kind of the range of residential uses, but all other R4 uses are prohibited. And then in the staff report, we just noted that with them that this is in the historic district, and other factors may come into play.
Councilwoman Knoll, any questions or comments?
Yes, and I do believe this is the same property that I was at the neighborhood association meeting, and the actual developer was there. And I don't think that there was opposition, but there was definitely some concerns and some stipulations they wanted to place on that. But I'm gonna check back with the neighborhood president to make sure this is the same property.
Sure.
But they were good to go with it at that meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
And we can double check those conditions,
Okay.
what's been recommended on the ordinance.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I have a quick question for you, Karen. Can you go back to the map? I think that property rings a bell. That's the Chi Omega house when I was at UTC. So it has been a kind of a office or in that particular use for quite some time, if I'm not mistaken, decades.
Right.
Is that correct?
So I think that there is a sign, if you zoom in on that picture, I think there is some sort of signage for that. But that is one of the mixes in Fort Wood, are kind of boarding homes with a mix of, Greek life type residents.
And I was never inside, just for the record, just to make sure. I never went inside of it, but I heard it, okay. Yeah. And if you'll, Madam Vice Chair, you were at Planning Commission, if you don't mind, share your thoughts.
Yeah, the impression that I got when the gentleman stood up at the beginning of the Planning Commission was that because Kyle was noted within the description as the current owner, I think there was some confusion that it was going to become a sorority home.
It's not.
Right.
Yeah.
The opposite of that.
Yes.
So I think that was maybe where that came from.
Okay, very good. Thanks for that clarification.
And there is a policy out there on the number of sororities and fraternities in Fort Wood. So it's old, but it's still out there trying to regulate use.
Just went free off a slot for one.
Yeah.
No comment from my UTC days. No comment at all. Okay.
Yeah, I want to hear more.
Oh, no.
Over dinner.
All right. I think we got to move on to the next case.
Okay, number 57, which is L on your agenda, is at South Greenwood, rezoning from R1 to UGC to develop a 6-unit residential development. And the slides are pretty zoomed in, so it's kind of hard to see, to orient. This is one block off South Holtzclaw at Bennett and Greenwood, and it's that corner lot that's got the little, kind of the arrow on there. And so one of the comment, or the person in opposition at Planning Commission was just speaking to the amount of development in the area. So I tried to do a slide so you can see the Lucy Quarter development and the housing along South Greenwood Avenue to the north. So zooming in a little bit, the surrounding land uses are single-unit residential, vacant land, some manufacturing and wholesale along South Holtzclaw, and then that future Lucy Quarter mixed-use developments to the north. So staff found the proposal is compatible with the River to Ridge plan and surrounding uses. The site meets some secondary use criteria. We're trying to get density compatible and site served by transit. Staff again is recommending those conditions to ensure compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood. Opposition was just talking about the amount of development and the change in the area. Planning Commission is recommending approval for UGC with those conditions very similar to what was on the prior case, residential uses, maximum 6 units and 3 stories, and access from the alley only.
Councilwoman Knoll, any other questions or comments, this being in District 8?
Yes.
I do see a note and a phone number
I know.
for reference.
And I'm thankful. I want to definitely go out and look. I mean, I'm probably the only council person up here that the maps makes no sense to me. So I have to lay my eyes on the actual property. So I do visit them. So yes, I will call this individual and definitely meet them out there.
Sure.
Thank you.
Very good. I have one quick question. Since the change, I think in August of last year with UGC, was it last year we went to 5 stories?
Last year we went to 5 stories.
Have we seen 5 stories? It feels like the conditions across the board have been in the 2 to 3 story range. I'm just curious if you have anything.
So my observation is there's 2 types of UGC. There's the
Correct.
urban infill, which we have been getting a lot of, and those are conditioned close to 2.5, 3 stories. And that is because they're infill, they're on corners, they're transitional. But they're kind of, a lot of those are on those traditional urban lots. You get a 4-plex or a 6-plex. So yes, you're right on those. We are not seeing that 5-story. We have had some larger developments. I think we had one recently on South Broad that was 5 stories. But that's kind of but you were seeing a lot of the small infill, and those are getting conditioned, so we don't have the 5-story height.
I'm wondering as we move forward with the zoning changes, and Mr. Anderson's going to look up in just a second at me on this one, is if we reserve that probably 4 specific areas as we're seeing those conditions come through regularly, and actually having that as so that staff and the public can realize what's in there and know that that tool is limited automatically. It's just a trend that I've noticed across the board, and I think it's something we'll probably talk about as we move on into the new zoning code.
We have spent a lot of time on the UGC as an urban infill, discussing as staff, and recently went back and looked at everything that had been done, action by council and all the conditions, and are really hoping to use that to refine what that urban residential development tool will look like. And I think we'll be talking to Planning Commission about that in the next month or 2.
Look forward to the conversation. Okay. Any other cases, council, you would like to cover? That covers our cases with opposition this afternoon. We obviously will have a public hearing and a first reading if they are not a deferred item next week, so they will be read into the record. Karen, anything else you'd like to add before we turn it over to Mr. Anderson?
I'll note, since you gave me the opportunity, case 41, it's item I on your agenda on Riverside Drive. The applicant did propose some conditions at Planning Commission that were a little bit different from one of those developed by staff. One of those is regarding the access an extension of the Riverwalk, and we're in some discussion with CDOT just to make sure that's the right language, and we'll communicate with the applicant about that. But I will follow up on that. We just don't have quite final communication.
Would that be additional access that's
It will
not
just
currently
be
planned?
tweaking a condition that's already on there. Staff had language, the applicant came back with revised language, and we're just making sure it's really capitalizing and taking advantage of the connection from the Wilcox Bridge to the Riverwalk, and has the right language. So it's already a condition, and what's discussed is the intent of Planning Commission. We just want to make sure it's the right language for the city.
Very good. Thank you for that. Council, any other questions or comments for planning and zoning before we move into Mr. Anderson's presentation on short-term vacation rental ordinance? Mr. Anderson, you have the floor, sir.
I have till 6, right?
You haven't.
Kidding.
You have all the time you need, sir. But we do start a meeting at 6.
If we can get the presentation for STVRs, please. I want to commend the council and staff on moving very quickly and efficiently today, and I hope to continue that trend. All right, next slide, please. Oh, I can control it here this time. Great. All right, so background. The people in this room don't really need me to go through all these, so this is basically where we've been over the last year. This council took a very tough decision and imposed a moratorium on new STVRs until we could get a new framework in place with which to do new enforcement measures. There were meetings upon meetings upon meetings after that. That's a brief timeline, and you'll have this in your packets as well. Here we are now. It's May 2023. We do not yet have a new law on the books. I hope that we change that next week. The proposed amendment from the administration as a starting point in the ordinance moves STVR regulations to Chapter 38 to the zoning, which legal counsel has advised us is the proper place for it to be in the ordinances. It keeps the overlay and readopts it as a part of the amendment. The overlay is for homestays now. So non-owner occupied, or as I'll be referring to them hereafter as absentee, are allowed in every district where you can build a hotel today. Homestays, or non-owner occupied, or owner occupied rather, are allowed in those same zones plus any residential zone within the overlay, which is currently the situation as well. We've placed a limit. We've listened to council, and the rest of this comes from your discussions. We placed a limit on oversaturation of multi-unit residential buildings. 25% will be capped for total number of units within a multi-unit structure. No owner can apply for an STVR certificate within 18 months of receiving a rezone from a zone that does not allow it to a zone that does. So hopefully that will deter a flood of rezoning cases to this council simply for the purpose of operating an STVR. The overlay is here. This has not changed, and again, this will be used for the homestays. Homestays means the applicant lives there for at least 183 days out of the year. That's the state definition. Absentee is not the primary resident of the applicant. The fees go to $500 for absentee and $250 for homestays. The permitting process will be like the other permits that the city of Chattanooga issues every day. It'll be an administrative process that is objective, not subjective. There will be a list of criteria and a list of ways to prove that you live where you say you live. Applicants will simply meet the criteria or not. If they are denied a permit, they will take their appeal to the Board of Zoning Appeals if they so choose, and beyond that, it's Chancery Court in Hamilton County. All certificates that are currently issued can be renewed continuously. We are not putting anyone out of business, and we have given the industry room to grow in places where it makes sense throughout the city. One of the most important things is that a local contact person must be available 24 hours a day by phone and must be able to arrive at the property in question within 2 hours in person. And the best part, the administrative hearing officer. Thank you to council for already approving an administrative hearing officer. I understood we have received at least one application, and there will be a presentation in a couple of weeks, and this council will choose who the new AHO is. All violations of the STVR ordinance will go straight to the administrative hearing officer. This is the way we can have real teeth in our enforcement and go after the unpermitted, illegally operating businesses in our neighborhoods. New enforcement staff will be funded with permit fees, and we've already moved 2 people into enforcement staff on this, and they've been training for a few weeks. This just says that the permits are renewable, and we're grandfathering in every existing permit. So once again, I want to state again, nobody who's currently operating within the law will be put out of business. They can continue to operate. They just need to keep doing their paperwork every year. We've talked about this for over a year. I rushed through this because I perceived that was council's appetite. I'm happy to take any questions that you have now.
I will open the floor. Dr. Burge, you are up first.
Thank you. So,
Yes,
is
ma'am.
this a true statement, Chris? I'm doing this for the record.
If I said it, it probably is, but I'll listen.
No, it is. So I've already gotten calls, you know,
Sure.
from the various neighborhoods in my district. Is this true? Nothing outside the overlay that is in R1 will allow short-term vacation rentals. They're not allowed there.
Correct.
I think it is true.
Correct,
All
yes.
right, so pretty much what you're saying is the overlay stays as it is. For those that are outside the overlay, there will never be short-term vacation rentals in R1.
That will be up to this council and future councils. In this legislation, no, there is no R1 outside of the overlay. I don't want to say never because somebody else might be standing up here next week.
All right.
Well, hopefully not next week.
Please not next week. Where they may be allowed in the districts outside the overlay is commercial districts where they could already happen.
Yes, ma'am, the commercial districts that allow a hotel today by right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Council, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you. I am doing some quick math on the fees versus the cost of enforcement. I'm looking for the notes that I had taken back in a meeting several months ago. Chris, can you walk us through the estimated cost of enforcement between the AHO, the 2 cars, the 2 new people to enforce, and the fees as you have them outlined here?
That was not contemplated in my presentation today for the purpose of this meeting, but I'll be happy to get that to you within the next day or 2, no later than Thursday.
Oh, you know what? I just found it here. So costs associated with the STVR ordinance, we had, at one point, we had figured on needing about a minimum of $138,000 to cover our costs. But since then, we've added vehicles. I'm just doing a quick estimate that at $500 per absentee, if we had 300 of them, that would yield $150,000. I'd just like to make sure that this is going to cover its own costs.
We believe it will.
Especially as costs go up.
We believe it will, and administrative personnel in the departments that have to enforce it believe we've covered the cost.
I'd like to see a breakdown of that, please, the line item budget for how we're going to cover this, what the cost will be for the enforcement piece, including the cars and the staff and Granicus.
I'm happy to do that with the caveat that, of course, it's an estimate because we don't know how many permits to the penny that we're going to have.
That's true, but we have a certain number of permits now, and, you know, we could estimate at a 25% growth, for example, citywide. I think that would be really conservative.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, that's all for now.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Any other questions from council? I'm not shocked. We have been discussing this for quite some time.
I think I heard a motion to approve.
I didn't hear that, Chris. I didn't hear that, Chris. So council, any other questions or concerns about what has been proposed that has come through Planning Commission?
I do have another question.
Yes, Madam Vice Chair, you still have the floor.
Thank you. The statement has been made multiple times that within this ordinance that short-term vacation rental would be allowed in any zone in which a hotel would be allowed. And so, for example, we've got several UGC that come across our desk regularly that often will have a condition that say residential use only. Does that take them out of the running for anything that has the ability to be a hotel? It seems like it does, but is that the condition that makes it not able to be a short-term vacation rental?
Depending on the wording of the condition, because I know that conditions are different for each case, it could possibly, I would need to see the specific wording and confer with the city attorney. In the abstract, and generally, yes, is the answer to your question, but I can't say that across the board for every case because they all have different conditions.
I do want to do a follow-up, sir.
Sure. Madam Vice Chair, you,
That's fine. I'm following up on her.
you have the floor.
So in my district, we're doing a lot to enhance housing availability. And we're spending a lot of time and money, and as our developers who are retooling motels so that we can have the needed affordable housing in our area. So the question becomes very good in that those could in turn become short-term vacation rentals. You think that through with me. It's in a district where they're not allowed. It's in a district that we have spent a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and time and money and a lot of torches and pitchfork meetings. Could it, given this law or this proposed ordinance, allow these things then to become short-term vacation rentals?
It would depend purely on how each individual property is zoned, including any conditions attached to that property.
They would be C2, or they already, or they would go to UGC, like our own Airport Inn went to UGC, which would totally defeat what Jenny and some of us are trying to do relative to affordable housing.
The Airport Inn, of course, would not be eligible for STVRs as we have already a plan for the Airport Inn and it has a designated use. And there are also some dollars attached to that couldn't be used for STVR.
I've got two more online coming in that I've deferred because of meetings that are being really fixed up for the housing need. And
I would recommend conditioning those on no short-term vacation rentals specifically.
So anytime we do this, let's say my district is an example of that, where some other neat things are happening, one of the conditions would be no short-term vacation rentals conditioning, even though you're in a C2 or UGC.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that input, Jenny. That's a good point.
Thank you, Dr. Burrs. On that note, Mr. Anderson, I've given that some thought as well, and you have some notes from me as well, is the short-term vacation rental in UGC specifically. And that is something that council and applicants will need to be aware of. And I think that's a good place to do it, is up front in conversation with the community and an applicant for UGC, is to be aware that condition exists. And I'm glad that you fortified that, because that's something that been on my mind as well. It's just one of those things that we are responsible for when we're doing conditional zoning.
Yes, and to add to that, Chairman, if you have, for example, a 4-unit townhome building that is in UGC on Main Street, for example, the 25% saturation cap would limit it to only 1.
Right.
And typically, those UGC rezones have been on or very close to major thoroughfares.
Correct. Okay.
Or industrial sites.
Yeah. Council, any other questions for Mr. Anderson? Madam Chair, any other business you need to bring before the council before I adjourn us till 6? Well, I will adjourn us until 6.